President Vladimir Putin is seen firing a Russian SVD sniper rifle while visiting a training center in Ryazan region.
Putin's visit is the first since he announced a partial military call-up on September 21st. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
The Department of Justice sets its preliminary probe on the murder charges against those involved in the Percy Lapid assassination on October 24. The Department of Health confirms local community transmissions of new COVID-19 Omicron subvariants. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will remain the head of the Agriculture Department as he rejects calls to appoint a permanent secretary. Almost 600 people die and 1.5 million displaced as deadly floods hit Nigeria. And Britain's ruling Conservatives set October 28 elections to replace resigned Prime Minister Liz Truss.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said it is not yet time to leave the Department of Agriculture as its secretary. Eden Santos has the details.
I think I'm still needed there.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has rejected calls to name a permanent secretary for the Department of Agriculture. The president concurrently holds the position. The chief executive acknowledges that there are problems that need to be addressed at the DA, so it still needs his attention.
The problems are so difficult that it will take a president to change and turn it around. Very deeply embedded ang mga problema na natin sa agrikultura. Ito ay nangyari sa napakaraming taon. Kaya hindi ganun kabilis, hindi ganun kadali na ibalik sa ating magandang sistema dati.
Marcos said he would only appoint a permanent replacement to the department when he is sure that changes has been laid down and qualified and deserving people are appointed in the agency.
So I think when we are able to say that the DA's functions are properly institutionalized and the structural changes that we need to make in the DA have been made, and the appointments in the DA have already been made, then saka ako bibitaw. Because then they don't need me anymore. They don't need the president heading the department.
The administration said the president is effective as DA secretary, citing the high approval rating based on the latest Publicus survey, which showed 63% of respondents agree with Marcos as head of the DA. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed Attorney Gamaliel Cordoba as ad interim chairman of the Commission on Audit. Attorney Brian Osaka, Public Information Office Chief of the Supreme Court, confirmed that Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo has sworn in Cordoba to office. Attorney Cordoba has long served as Commissioner at the National Telecommunications Commission or NTC.
Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also named a new head at the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA. Retired Police General Moro Virgilio Lazo replaced former PDEA Director General Wilkins Villanueva. Lazo also served as Director of the PNP Special Action Forces or SAF. Under Secretary Cheloy Garafil, Officer in charge at the Office of the Press Secretary has confirmed Lazo's appointment. Lazo is a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy, or PMA, class 1984, and was a member of the Presidential Security Group during the presidency of Fidel V. Ramos.
The Philippines has scrapped plans to buy military choppers from Russia. Instead, the Marcos administration will procure military helicopters from the country's longtime ally, the United States. The deal was to buy 15 military heavy-lift helicopters from Russia, but this was canceled during the Duterte administration to avoid any sanctions from the Western countries. Marcos said the decision could not be reversed.
I think that it has already been determined. It was already determined by the previous administration that that deal will not carry through, will not go on. We have secured an alternative supply from the United States through the manufacturer of Poland. In any case, meron na tayong kapalit.
When Marcos assumed office, Russia requested the administration to honor the contract. The government hopes that the Russian chopper maker would return the initial payment for the canceled contract.
Tropical Depression Obed continues to maintain its strength as it sets its sights on Batanes province. According to Pagasa, the center of the storm is located 75 kilometers east of Basco, Batanes. It is packed with maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 is still raised on Batanes, Babuyan Islands, and the northeastern portion of mainland Cagayan. Obed continues to move west at speeds of 20 kilometers per hour. The storm may gradually intensify and reach the tropical storm category by tonight or tomorrow morning. Obed may pass over or get close to Batanes between tonight and might exit the Philippine area of responsibility tomorrow morning or afternoon.
The Department of Health has confirmed the local transmission of new subvariants of Omicron. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the story.
After confirming the detection of cases of Omicron XBB subvariant and XBC variant in the country, the Department of Health has admitted that they already have a localized community transmission of these variants in some regions of the country. But the health department has not determined yet the links of the local infections. Dr. Alethea de Guzman, director of DOH Epidemiology Bureau, said the community transmission of XBB is observed in Region 6, while XBC is detected in Regions 11 and 12.
We say na it's localized kasi hindi siya buong bansa. Hindi namin madeklara na may community transmission sa buong bansa. But in selected regions, there is already. No? Halimbawa, sa Region 6, kung saan karamihan ng ating mga XBB ay doon natin nakita at hindi na nga link, yes, no? So selected yon, localized yon, doon masasabi natin may ebidensya na nagsusuporta na may community transmission na. For XBC, there is initial evidence to support that localized community transmission for regions 11 and 12, no? Dahil madami na tayong na-detect doon.
Data shows that there are 80 cases of XBB in Region 6, while 70 cases of the XBC variant were recorded in Region 11 and 99 in Region 12. De Guzman said they are still investigating how the patients contract the virus, but in their initial study, these are local cases. The DOH has assured that the community transmission of the new COVID-19 variants is limited for now to the said region. According to an epidemiologist, Dr. John Wong, since the entry in the country, almost half of the samples sequenced are Omicron. Wong said that 5 of the Omicron subvariants that were declared under monitoring by the World Health Organization are present in the Philippines. These are BA.5, BA.2.75, BA.4.6, XBB, and BA.2.3.20. Experts said they only have a little knowledge of XBB and XBC variants. But Wong said they are monitoring these variants due to the possibility of bringing up the virus infections in the country.
We don't really know what proportion of our cases consists of XBB and XBC. Kasi what we've collected so far are samples, but we don't know whether these are collected proportionally, no, across all the regions. No? But just from the characteristics of increased transmission, now we know that the cases, no, will continue to increase, no, if XBB and XBC become dominant, no.
XBB subvariants have been identified in 24 countries and 4 continents, but the majority of the cases are found in Singapore. In the past week, Denmark and Belgium have reported an increase in the cases and the number of patients hospitalized. Meanwhile, XBC variant is a recombinant of Omicron BA.2 and Delta variant. Although experts have no enough information on XBC, it is believed to be more transmissible and has the ability to immune escape. The DOH said the new variants are detected in areas where vaccination coverage is low, so it renewed the agency's call for the public to avail of the vaccine and booster shots. Madeline Villar Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A development in the Percy Lapid assassination. The surviving alleged middleman is now in the custody of the Philippine National Police. Mark Gabriel has full details.
Following the death of a beloved prison inmate, said to be the one of the 2 middlemen in the slaying of broadcaster Percival Mabasa, or Percy Lapid, 3 days ago, the Philippine National Police is now strictly guarding the second alleged middleman, currently detained in a BJMP facility. The PNP has confirmed that the alleged second middleman has already been transferred in their custody to ensure that the suspect will be protected as he could help in the investigation.
So yung BJMP well secured, nalipat na. Hindi ko pa po pwedeng i-disclose yung pangalan para at least maproteksyonan po natin.
The PNP has also coordinated with the Bureau of Corrections, or Bucor, to provide security to another inmate, a relative of the deceased middleman named Jun Villamor. PNP is convinced that he can help in the resolution of the case.
So hopefully there will be a new development that is favorable to finally end this case. We're actually almost there, but unfortunately may mga nangyari nga na hindi naman dapat mangyari. Pero still, our police are still doing its best to end or to resolve this crime.
The PNP gave assurance that self-confessed gunman Escorial and his family are being secured and are in good condition. Mar Gabriel, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
House Minority Leader Congressman Marcelino Libanan has urged the Philippine National Police, or PNP, to look into the money trail on the source of the payment to the group commissioned to assassinate broadcaster Percy Lapid. With the death of the alleged middleman Crisanto Palana Villamor, the crime has become more complicated. Libanan said a lot of leads could be tracked with the money trail because it can identify the person ordered to deliver the money with Escorial's group. In his confession, Escorial said they were paid 550,000 pesos for Lapid's slaying. After completing the crime, 140,000 pesos was deposited in his bank account as his part of the payment. The Department of Justice has set on Monday, October 24, the preliminary investigation and murder charges against a self-confessed gunman in the Percy Lapid slaying. The National Bureau of Investigation is conducting an autopsy on the remains of an inmate, allegedly the middleman in the case. The DOJ also appoints retired Armed Forces Chief of Staff Gregorio Catapang Jr. as officer in charge at the Bureau of Corrections, or Bucor. Moira Encina files this report.
Joel Escorial, the self-confessed gunman on the slaying of broadcaster Percival Mabasa, or Percy Lapid, will appear before the Department of Justice on Monday, October 24. In his inquest proceedings, Escorial requested for the preliminary investigation of the murder complaint filed by the victim's brother, Roy Mabasa. The preliminary investigation is set despite Escorial's reaffirmation of his extrajudicial confession where he admitted killing Lapid on October 3 in Las Piñas City. In his confession, Escorial said he shot Lapid 3 times using a .45 caliber pistol. Escorial also identified his cohorts in planning the crime. He said in his affidavit that the crime was ordered by one Crisanto Palana Villamor, alias Idoy, who promised to pay them 550,000 pesos. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla has referred to Crisanto Villamor as the inmate in the Bilibid prison who acted as the middleman in the crime but died last October 18. Remulla said records show that Crisanto Villamor's name is different from what is listed in Bucor, which is June Villamor Igloba and June Villamor Garcia, but they are sure that it's the same person.
It appears it's one and the same person. Ito nga, no? June Villamor Garcia. And then, in the case where he was sentenced, his name is June Villamor Igloba. So you have a person who is known by three names, who was the person of interest in the Percy Lapid killing, who died, and when his record was being verified, it was not immediately verified because the name inside the records of Bilibid was another name. Same family name, but it's a June Villamor, Garcia or Igloba, depending on what record you look at.
Bucor records also show that the inmate was involved in cases like murder, attempted murder, and violation of the election gun ban. Initial findings of Bucor Health Service state that there are no signs of foul play in the death of the inmate. Villamor was rushed to the Bilibid Hospital around 1:30 in the afternoon on October 18 after he passed out. There was an attempt to revive him, but he was declared dead around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the same day. Remulla said the DOJ will release the final result of the autopsy on Villamor once an NBI has finished the toxicology test on the inmate's cadaver.
The autopsy was conducted for a few hours, and a toxicology report is being prepared as we speak, because it has to be a thorough autopsy. So to find out about the crime, or if there's a crime committed to the person, we have to. I don't believe in coincidence. We just have to check every angle. So we put to rest many doubts by conducting a scientific inquiry through an autopsy of the cadaver of Crisanto Villamor Jr. or June Villamor, as they call him, or on the record as June Villamor.
Remulla admitted that there are deficiencies, particularly in the authorities' coordination in the investigation of Lapid slaying.
Ang sa akin lang, sayang, if I was informed that we had to secure somebody inside Bilibid, that could have been done very early. Like last night, they requested me to secure the other possible witness. In 1.5 hours, the person was already with the police. We were able to secure the person immediately. But I was not informed by the police about this. So that's it. No? Coordination is very important, and there was probably a shortcoming there. Hindi kami napag-coordinate. Kasi nga, hindi naman kami ang nag-investigate. No? We're not the ones investigating.
Meanwhile, Remulla said President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered him to designate retired Armed Forces Chief of Staff Gregorio Catapang Jr. as Bucor's officer in charge, while the investigation on the death of the inmate is ongoing.
He asked me to appoint an OIC in New Bilibid from an order of the President. We'll be appointing Gregorio Catapang Jr. as OIC of Bucor. Gregorio Catapang Jr. was the Chief of Staff before of the Philippine military, the whole Philippine military. So,
Moira Encina reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Nigerian floods kill 600. Britain sets October 28 elections to replace resigned Prime Minister Liz Truss. And Russian President Vladimir Putin visits training center for drafted soldiers. More on these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Filipinos dream of buying their own homes. And as the population in the metro is becoming denser, some people are attracted in buying properties in the suburban areas. In this episode, let's look at real estate options outside the metro as we go north and south with developments by Rabino Home Builders Corporation.
Mas worth it mag-invest sa real estate po talaga. Kasi kahit magkaanak ka, tumanda ka, andyan po yung lupa mo, tumataas at tumataas po talaga yung presyo ng lupa.
Only here in Open for Business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
We are the Power Pack Girls! Transformed! Ito na ang maiinit na sabi or showbiz artista blind item! Gusto ko na umuwi!
Posible ang sinasabi mo.
Bakit?
Kalimutan mo na ba? Wala na tayong bahay. Kaya tayo na
This sport.
Welcome back to Matadang Agila International. Devastating floods have killed more than 600 and displaced 1.5 million in Nigeria. But despite the climate disaster, there are no indications of any assistance from international organizations, casting doubt if Africa is among the priorities of the first world countries. Kurutsi Bitrus of RT News has the story.
Recent rains have caused some of the worst flood along the Niger and Benue rivers in Nigeria in decades. More than 600 people have died and 1.5 million people have lost their homes or have been displaced from the places they stayed.
The flood entered my house. I had to evacuate to my nephew's home with my family. I heard that the flood also killed 5 people, but I saw 3 bodies. Yes, there have been announcements about climate change predicting more rain and floods, but we didn't know it will be as bad as it is now.
There is very little doubt in the minds of local and international climate experts that this disaster is just the latest link in the climate disaster, busy unfolding across Africa.
We planted a lot of rice this season. As it was getting ready for harvest, suddenly the flood submerged it. I lost over 30 hectares of rice.
There has been no indications of any assistance from international agencies to help local communities deal with the latest flood. Commentators on the ground have been very vocal, saying it's clear Africa tragedies are not a priority for first world countries and that aid and support will again get to these communities who need it way too late.
Chad's government announced an overnight curfew after deadly clashes between police and demonstrators claimed around 50 lives. Hundreds of demonstrators turned up at the capital, N'Djamena, and elsewhere to mark the date when the military had initially promised to hand over power, a spell that has been extended for another 2 years. According to Chadian Prime Minister Saleh Kazebo, the official death toll reached 50, while more than 300 people were injured. Kazebo added that a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and suspension of all public activity of major opposition groups would be put into order. Meanwhile, 5 bodies were seen on the floor of the city's Union Chagoa Hospital, 2 being covered with the Chadian national flag, and 3 were covered with bloodied white sheets, all confirmed dead because of gunshots.
At least 150 people have been killed in 2 days of fighting in the latest ethnic clashes triggered by land disputes in Sudan's southern Blue Nile state. The fighting between members of the Hausa people and rival groups is one of the worst in recent months. What Al-Mahi Hospital says, the 150 people who died included women, children, and the elderly, and they were killed between Wednesday and Thursday. Around 86 people were also wounded in the violence. On Wednesday, residents in the area reported intense gunfire and houses were set on fire. Authorities have since imposed an overnight curfew to contain the violence. According to a toll report, fighting between Hausa people and other groups first broke out in July, with some 149 dead and 124 wounded recorded up until early October. The UN says some 65,000 people have been forced to flee their homes.
Liz Truss has become the shortest-serving prime minister in Britain's history after the public, MPs, and the markets comprehensively rejected the self-styled heiress to Margaret Thatcher. And the ruling Conservatives planned a rapid contest to replace her in an election set on October 28. From UK, let's hear more from Arian Celestino.
After Liz Truss' announcement of her resignation as UK's Prime Minister, the ruling Conservative Parliament has the election for the country's new leader on October 28. The party has set a high bar of 100 nominations for candidates to amass from their fellow MPs. This might block any comeback by former Premier Boris Johnson. The race will be effectively limited to 3 candidates at the start before the 357 Tory MPs vote on their preferred candidates on Monday. Opposition parties demanded that UK voters get their own say to end months of political chaos. The MPs will vote to leave 2 candidates standing and hold another indicative vote to tell the party membership their preferred option. The rank and file will then have their say in an online ballot over the course of next week, unless a single candidate emerges from the MPs' deliberations in an effective coronation. But for Labour and other opposition parties, the governing party is showing contempt towards the electorate. Truss, in her resignation, admitted she cannot deliver the mandate on which she was elected by Tory members, after her right-wing platform of tax cuts disintegrated and as many Conservative MPs revolted. Truss succeeded Boris Johnson on September 6 after a weeks-long campaign against Tory rival Rishi Sunak, vowing a radical overhaul as Britons struggle with a cost-of-living crisis. Having warned correctly of the disastrous consequences of her debt-fueled tax promises, former Finance Minister Sunak has emerged as an early favorite to succeed Truss. From London, United Kingdom, this is Arabel Celestino for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you so much, Arabel Celestino. Now, in a related news, as British Prime Minister Liz Truss resigned, Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, quipped, "Bye-bye, Liz Truss, congrats to lettuce." Now, the Medvedev was not the only Moscow official who responded to Truss's resignation. Russia's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that Liz Truss was a disgrace. She added that Truss will be remembered for her catastrophic illiteracy. Tesla CEO Elon Musk also made a response to Russia's trawling of the former prime minister. However, Musk's tweet caused a divide in the internet world. Some said it was offensive. Meanwhile, the tabloid Daily Star declared a lettuce as the victor in a race to see if it could outlast Liz Truss. The UK newspaper set up a live feed on Friday showing the unrefrigerated iceberg next to a photo of Truss, asking readers which one will last longer. The stunt was inspired by a column in The Economist that referred to Truss as an iceberg lady and said she had the shelf life of a lettuce.
Iran's foreign ministry advised its citizens on Friday to leave Ukraine for their own safety. Tehran's ministry statement also said that all Iranians are strongly advised to refrain from traveling to Ukraine. Iranian announcement came after news reports of escalating military activities in Ukraine. Meanwhile, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby accused Iranian personnel in Crimea of helping Russia in its war against Ukraine. Kirby alleged that the Iranians in Crimea were trainers and tech support workers and that the Russians were piloting the drones, which have caused significant damage to Ukrainian infrastructure. Kirby also claimed that Tehran is now directly engaged in the war between Kyiv and Moscow. He said the U.S. is going to continue vigorously enforce all sanctions on both the Russian and Iranian arms trade.
Russian President Vladimir Putin paid a visit to a military draft training center for the first time since announcing a military call-up last month. State television showed Putin visiting a shooting center Thursday. After greeting soldiers, the Russian president donned safety glasses and ear protectors to do a bit of target practice. Putin fired several shots from a sniper rifle while lying under a camouflage net. His visit comes after reports that mobilized men are badly equipped, leading to some discontent. Russia's mobilization effort is aimed at propping up Moscow's forces in Ukraine after a series of military setbacks.
South Africa has accused Western countries of using the South African state as a sacrificial lamb and altar for green energy. Based on the Global Carbon Project, the African region accounts for only 4% of greenhouse emissions, and its most industrialized country, South Africa, contributed only 1%. Locals said that number does not square up to pressure South Africa to turn its back on coal. Karabo Lethatla of RT News has the story.
As global climate negotiators prepare to haggle over greenhouse gas emissions at the 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference in Egypt, the battle lines are already drawn. According to the Global Carbon Project, the lion's share of CO2 emissions will continue to be led by China, Asia, Europe, as well as the United States. Africa accounts for barely 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and the most industrialized economy on the continent, South Africa, accounts for 1.3% of emissions. These modest numbers do not quite square up with the pressure being heaped on South Africa to turn its back on coal, all in the face of Europe's clamoring for the very same coal they want South Africa to stop using. The country is being enticed with loans to help them fund their transition, but some critics argue that this is South Africa making itself the sacrificial lamb at the altar of green energy.
Why are we offering ourselves? That's why I'm asking the question. Because we've got choices. We can actually not resist, but put an argument that our development will depend on secure energy, and currently fossil are secure.
Sanctions imposed on Russia by Europe are increasingly coming back to bite them. Critics say this highlights the hypocrisy and geopolitics of energy transition in the world. This will also affect the technology choices each country makes towards sustainable energy transition. And according to the International Energy Agency, our path to net zero emissions will be much harder and more expensive without the use of nuclear power.
It is not only about renewables, it's really about cleaner and less emitting technologies. And nuclear is one big source of low carbon power.
Koeberg Power Station here in Cape Town is giving us energy at 40 cents a unit. So it's the most efficient and the lowest cost. Every other technology is catching up.
And even though renewable energies are cleaner, they still need baseline backup. And in South Africa's case, that means coal. And that means that fossil fuels, as well as renewable energy, might have to work in tandem.
We still have an option to add more renewables on our base. So we leave your base load intact or reduce very minimally, but you put renewables on top. That's what Germany has done. That's what Australia is doing. They are not taking out their dispatchable power. They are adding more on top of that dispatchable power.
If South Africa and Africa are to win the fight to use their own energy resources to develop their economies and uplift their people in a well-planned and coordinated manner, the continent will need to be firmer and avoid getting tied up in agendas of Western nations. Private capital is already knocking at the door, trying to own a piece of the developing world's energy system. But critics argue large capital inflows only reward instead of restrain unsustainable bad economic policies. And that could hurt the developing world even much more than climate change itself. Karabole Tlhatlha, RT, Johannesburg.
EU leaders on Friday reached an agreement on a roadmap aimed at putting in place measures within weeks to shield European consumers from soaring energy prices. The accord came after 11 hours of wrangling over broad proposals to lower energy bills as gas prices were pushed skywards by the war in Ukraine. According to European Council President Charles Michel, the energy crisis represents a threat to the internal market of the EU, and maximal coordination was needed to protect it. At least 15 EU countries, or more than half the bloc, pushed the ambitious cap on prices, but it was opposed by Germany, the EU's biggest economy, fearing that gas supplies could end up shifting to more lucrative markets in Asia. In the end, a cost and benefit analysis of the price cap for electricity generation was agreed to be carried out, and its impact beyond Europe would be assessed. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz gladly acknowledged the talk, which showed determination and unity to progress on the situation.
Next on Mata ng Agila International. President Emmanuel Macron rams budget through divided French parliament. UNICEF official says people desensitized to hunger problem in Africa. And Beijing tightens COVID measures as cases quadruple. Do stay tuned. We will be right back after this short break.
We wake up like this. Ganyan ang isang senadora pagka behind the scenes. Di alam ng tao lahat ito ha. Ang tingin talaga sa kanya, donya siya, areglado lahat. Hindi natin alam, lagarista pala dati.
Koboy ako. At saka nagbabaon para matipid. Alternative tea, yung blue pea.
Pwede kunguyain ngayon yan?
Yeah, it's edible flower.
Kakainin ko ito. May ambulansya ba dyan?
Yeah.
Dear Bosley, ako po si Biboy at isa po akong nurse.
Ano ginagawa mo dyan? Wala po ako makita! Dok? Akalay! Akalay! Akalay ko!
So, hindi ka takot sa kahit na ano?
No.
Love, Bosleng, and Tali. Tuwing linggo, alas 6 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
President Emmanuel Macron's government sought to ram its 2023 budget through Parliament without a vote after struggling in vain to get it approved by the lower house of the Parliament. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne urged the members of the Parliament before using Clause 49.3 of the French Constitution to bypass the legislature on the Social Security budget. Under the said clause, a law can be passed automatically unless the opposition passes its own vote of no confidence in the government. However, deputies from the new Ecological and Social Popular Union began leaving the chamber before Borne had finished speaking. The walkouts have just been one of the challenges facing Macron's government. The loss of his overall majority in June legislative polls also meant he could not get enough deputies to approve the package. Other news sources said that Macron is having a hard time lifting France out of economic squeeze that has ignited weekly industrial action and street protests.
Far-right leader Giorgia Meloni is expected to be named as the first woman Italian prime minister after her party's historic election win. After winning 8% and 9% respectively for her allies Forza Italia and Far-Right League, the 45-year-old from Rome is now all but certain to be asked to form a government. Meloni's win would create a historic shift for the Eurozone's third-largest economy and for the Brothers of Italy, which have never been in the government. Based on tradition, Meloni will only be named by President Sergio Mattarella after conducting formal talks with all parties in parliament. This Friday, Meloni attended representatives of her coalition to meet Mattarella with the expectation that she would be asked to create a government as early as this afternoon. Over the weekend, she could be sworn in, with the ministers having the vote of confidence in parliament next week.
A supermarket in one of Atlanta's poorest neighborhoods provides local residents with free food and supplies, such as vegetables, frozen meals, and paper towels. A shopper who came in with her son to the grocery spot said there are a lot of starving and sick people, so a place like this is necessary. With its 12% inflation rate, Atlanta, the capital of Georgia, is one of the cities where prices have increased the most this year in the United States. Another customer described the grocery spot as a hidden gem. It is open 3 days a week and serves close to 500 people a day. Store manager Sluga said that everybody has their own problem on how they can't afford the food due to the way everything's gone skyrocketing. That's why they put up the grocery spot. Sluga said donations come in different ways to keep their shop going. When people see they are short on some supplies, help always comes in. He described the process of helping as the Robin Hood effect.
A UNICEF official fears some people have become numb to the seriousness of hunger in Africa. Priyanka Chopra Jonas says the world has to act fast in order to save the lives of children dying from hunger in the Horn of Africa. Jonas is in Kenya, where she says 1 in 3 children suffers from acute malnutrition. She says nearly 900,000 children under the age of 5 are in need of treatment for life-threatening hunger. Jonas says that is something the global community doesn't seem to realize.
And I think people have become desensitized, especially to this part of the world, because this region has had issues of extreme poverty for a really long time. But I want to make sure that this is not forgotten, because suffering like this should not happen to any child. No child should die of hunger, especially in a world where we have so much.
She says the situation has worsened over the last few years because of drought and the ongoing impact of COVID-19.
Beijing announces it will strengthen COVID checks and tighten some residential compounds after reported cases quadrupled in recent weeks. Some residential facilities with suspected cases were put under 3-day lockdowns. However, authorities say that lockdowns in the city could be extended. Reports also say that accredited journalists have been asked to stay in closed-loop hotels. They are also subjected to daily COVID-19 tests before Saturday's event at the Great Hall of the People, where President Xi Jinping is expected to secure a historic third term as Communist Party chief. Beijing's move comes amid the ruling Communist Party Congress, where officials have doubled down on the country's controversial zero-COVID policy. This is despite critics saying lockdowns and strict COVID checks have detrimental effects on the Chinese economy.
Warning that we are in a time of peril and wariness, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres emphasizes that if the world seriously wants to achieve sustainable communities, the physical and mental health of people must be given priority. Rosel Feria reports.
In a video message, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres tells global leaders at the World Health Summit in Berlin, Germany, that physical and mental health are the foundation for peaceful, sustainable societies. Guterres warns that we live in a time of great risk and uncertainty. He mentions how poorly prepared the world was, as demonstrated during the pandemic. The UN chief says women shoulder an increased burden of care in families and as frontline workers. He says many women have endured significant income reduction due to job losses and the absence of adequate social safety nets. Guterres says the pandemic and current world crisis have delayed the push for the Sustainable Development Agenda.
The COVID-19 pandemic, along with the current food, energy and financial crisis, has set back efforts to reduce poverty and hunger and implement the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. To advance the Sustainable Development Goals, we must recalibrate multilateralism and strengthen global cooperation.
He says global health security and preparedness need to be strengthened through sustained political commitment and leadership. The UN chief calls on governments to give priority to health. He also appeals to wealthier countries and international financial institutions, saying they need to support developing countries to make those crucial investments. Guterres says everyone needs inclusive, impartial, and equitable access to health services to deliver universal health coverage. He underscores the must to ensure mental health is not a neglected aspect of healthcare. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In the Canadian province of Ontario, municipal elections are held every 4 years on the fourth Monday of October. So this year, they will be held on Monday, October 24. The city of Toronto joins the entire province in gearing up for exercising the right to choose their leaders. Joshua Santillana reports.
Toronto will hold its municipal election day this coming Monday, October 24th. In this election, Torontonians will be voting for their mayor, councillor, and school board trustee if eligible. There are currently 31 candidates running for mayor, including incumbent mayor John Tory, seeking for re-election. Advanced voting began on October 7th and ended October 14th. The advanced polls saw a 6.75% decrease on the voter turnout compared to the 2018 municipal elections. On October 24, Election Day, voting locations will be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. To find more information about their ward, candidates, and voting locations, Torontonians can use the My Vote app. Voters can also use this app to download and print their voter information card and see a sample of their ballot. Voters are encouraged to bring their voter cards and one piece of government ID showing their name and current address to cast their ballot. 5 of the 31 mayoral candidates faced off in a final public debate Monday to make their pitch. John Tory, Gil Penalosa, Sarah Clemenhega, Stephen Punwasi, and Chloe Brown. You may find out more about their platform and campaigns by visiting their official websites. Joshua Santillana, Toronto, Ontario, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A number of violations of hazardous waste regulations cost global freight giant UPS $5.3 million and a commitment to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to address non-compliance within 36 months. Melissa Potes reports.
The United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, announces a settlement with United Parcel Service Incorporated, or UPS, to resolve violations of hazardous waste regulations. The violations occurred at more than 1,000 facilities across 45 states and the territory of Puerto Rico. The shipping and receiving company was cited with failure to make land disposal determinations and conduct proper on-site management of hazardous waste. UPS has 3 years to comply across 1,160 locations. It will also pay a civil penalty of $5.3 million. EPA says UPS generates hazardous waste regulated under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act when a package containing certain hazardous materials is damaged, as well as during day-to-day operations such as maintenance. The agency also discovered UPS facilities generated, accumulated, and offered for transport treatment, and/or disposal of certain hazardous waste streams. These include ignitable, corrosive, and reactive substances, including acute hazardous wastes. EPA says UPS is addressing non-compliance and has started implementations at its facilities nationwide. The said violations are a stark contrast from 2 years ago, when in November 2020, EPA honored UPS with a Smart Way Excellence Award. The award recognizes top shipping and logistics company leaders for superior environmental performance. In an email, UPS spokesperson Lauren Spangler says the company has long-standing procedures in place for handling hazardous waste and are taking additional steps to further enhance its practices. Spangler says UPS will continue to work with agencies and authorities around the world to ensure the safety of its network and the well-being of its employees and the customers and communities it serves. Melissa Potas, Orlando, Florida, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, turtle hatchlings released into the Guatemalan Sea. Report says big staff cuts likely at Twitter. And Taylor Swift drops her 10th studio album, Midnight, today. Mata ng Agila International, we'll be right back with those stories. Don't go away.
Masiglahin ang araw ng linggo. Kayo'y maaantig.
Huwag mo ubusin ang luha mo sa wala dito.
Mapapaisip.
What are we gonna do?
Matatawa.
Why so much food? Even no money, no honey, we make utang-utang.
Mapapahanga. At mapapainda. Kasama si The King, ang nag-iisang comedy king Dolphy.
Ano pangalan mo? Big po. Big po. Ano mo si Fernando po?
Tito Vic and Joey.
Mahirap ikwento, Vicky. Mahabang istorya.
At marami pang artista na pinagigiliwan noon magpahanggang ngayon. Cine Throwback. Tuwing linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together, let's stand together sa Net 25.
Ako po si Pauline Luna Soto of Love, Bossling, and Tally. Abangan niyo po ang guesting ko sa Lutong Daza because we cooked so many dishes.
You can choose your friends, but you can choose.
Food on the go po ang mga niluto namin. I had such a great time. Pabangan nyo this coming Saturday, 11 a.m. Lutong Daza only on Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together, let's stand together sa Net 25.
Released black turtle hatchlings head to the sea on the beach of Sipacate in Guatemala City. For this season, there are 400 black turtle eggs hatched higher than the record of 56,000 eggs laid 4 years ago. Protected Area Manager Carlos Velasquez said some people use sea turtles as an aphrodisiac, but instead of doing the same thing, they raise awareness to conserve the species. The mother turtles come out to lay their eggs as the moon or tide changes. 20% of the laid eggs were collected to bring to the turtle farm, while the rest are brought to market.
Twitter projects massive layoffs if the buyout deal with billionaire CEO Elon Musk would succeed. The Tesla boss revealed his plan to dissolve more than 2,000 Twitter employees in his discussion with investors to purchase Twitter. Meanwhile, if the buyout fails, the company would still cut $800 million from its payroll by the end of the year, which would reflect the termination of about a quarter of its employees. Twitter was reported having trouble in making money before Musk came along. With the projected manpower cuts, the platform's ability to moderate abusive posts and keep data secured would also be affected.
U.S. chess grandmaster Hans Niemann sues rival Magnus Carlsen for at least $100 million after the Norwegian world champion accused him of cheating. Niemann is also suing the website chess.com, which published a report claiming he had probably cheated in more than 100 online games. The complainant says the defendants conspired to destroy his reputation and livelihood. On the other hand, lawyers for chess.com say there is no merit in Niemann's allegations. As of this moment, Carlsen has not responded to requests for any comment. The parties are involved in an ongoing scandal that has rocked the chess world.
Swifties are celebrating today as the multi-awarded artist Taylor Swift has released her latest and 10th album, Midnights. In a tweet after the album release, the singer-songwriter said Midnights is a collage of intensity, highs and lows, and ebbs and flows, where life can be dark, starry, cloudy, terrifying, electrifying, hot, cold, romantic, or lonely. Before the album drop, a teaser video was released consisting of clips of Swift's 13 sleepless nights that comprised the album. The Anti-Hero music video, which was said to be one of Swift's favorite songs, also premiered tonight at 8 p.m. local time. And as of this moment, it had already garnered 1.1 million views. Wow. Her next song is set to be released on October 24.
Hands up if you are a Harry Potter fan, because you can forget galleons, sickles, and nuts. You can now get magical muggle money from the Royal Mint. To mark the 25th anniversary release of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the Royal Mint is bringing out commemorative 50-pence coins. The first coin features an image of Harry himself. According to other news sources, other designs would feature Albus Dumbledore, Hogwarts School, Hogwarts Express, a lightning bolt, and the number 25. The new coin is also made special since it will be one of the last to feature the late Queen Elizabeth II.
Should I say it?
Go ahead.
Friday! Okay, let's now take a look back at some historical events that happened on this day, October 21st. In 1520, explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his fleet reached Cape Verhanes and became the first Europeans to sail into the Pacific Ocean. In 1833, Swedish chemist, engineer, and industrialist Alfred Nobel, who invented dynamite and other more powerful explosives and who also founded the Nobel Prizes, was born in Stockholm. And in 1879, Thomas Edison invented the electric incandescent lamp.
Now here's a weekend charge for all of you watching. Here's a quote from Andrew Murphy, an Australian former triple jumper. You are confined only by the walls you build yourself.
So break it down.
Break it. Don't let it stop or hinder you.
Don't limit yourself.
Exactly.
Do not be that person who limits you. And that is a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. Happy weekend, everyone. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores saying happy weekend. Take care of yourselves. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.